Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, this channel is primarily focused on motorbike reviews, but today we're taking a break from that and talking about the vacation my wife and I took to Hawaii this summer. We went to two of the islands, the Big Island of Hawaii and Oahu. I'm going to talk about what it's like, getting around those two islands, things to do, see, our recommendations, those kinds of things. One thing that I won't be discussing much is restaurants. We tend to be frugal. When it comes to eating out, we stayed at condos in both islands that had full kitchens, so we did most of our eating at our condo or packed lunches to take with us. We did eat out a couple of times, and I will talk about some of the local foods that we did try while we were there. First, let's talk about the islands themselves, what the environment is like, what it's like getting around them. The Big Island, of course, is the biggest island of Hawaii. If you drive the perimeter of the island, it takes about 5 hours without any traffic issues. You'll want to rent a car no matter which island you go on. Visiting the different areas isn't practical with things like Uber. I don't remember seeing any taxis or public transportation on the Big Island. There definitely is that kind of stuff on Oahu, but not much of that on the Big Island. The Big Island is divided into 5 main sections. The west coast has some small towns strung end to end along the coast, of which Kailua Kona, I believe, is the most prominent. This is the area that is most popular for tourists. It gets busy, but not crazy crowded. The beaches are nice, plenty of lush green vegetation, as well as farm stands to get fruits and veggies, and some beautiful scenery. The south side of the island is taken up primarily by the Volcano National Park, where the lush vegetation changes to dried lava flows, ranging anywhere from a few years old to hundreds of years old. The east side is also beautiful. The main area here is the town of Hilo. The east side gets a lot more rain than the west side, so while it's still very beautiful and green, it's not quite as appealing if you're looking for plenty of sunny days. The north side of the island is primarily known for the towns of Waimea and Waikoloa. Waikoloa has some nice beach areas, but otherwise not much of significance here in these two towns, at least not that we saw. The center of the island is primarily taken up by two massive volcanoes called Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa. Mauna Kea is the taller of the two, rising 14,000 feet above the surface of the island. It is the tallest point in Hawaii. But if you measure Mauna Kea all the way down to its base on the ocean floor, it is actually taller than Mount Everest at over 30,000 feet. Mauna Kea has not erupted in a couple thousand years, so is considered fully dormant. Mauna Loa is more active. It is not quite as tall as Mauna Kea, rising up a little over 13,000 feet above the island, but it is the largest volcano in terms of mass. It is much wider. It has erupted 34 times in the past 180 years or so. Kilauea is the youngest and most active volcano, erupting regularly in the 35 years between 1983 and 2018. Hualalai is another volcano on the Big Island. It has erupted fairly regularly about every 200 years and last erupted in 1801. So it's about 20 years overdue for an eruption. There's a fifth volcano on the Big Island. It is actually a submarine volcano. We didn't really get any info on that. So that's enough of the volcano trivia. Let's talk about things to do on the Big Island. There's lots to cover. Let's start with snorkeling. Kealakekua Bay is probably the most popular daytime snorkeling location on the Big Island. Lots of nice fish to see there. If you don't want to pay for the boat ride over to the bay, there is a hiking trail down to the bay if you have your own snorkeling gear or want to rent it. It is a challenging hike from what I hear, with a steep descent down to the bay. We opted to pay for the boat ride. This is also the area of Captain Cook Monument as well, which is fairly famous. Another popular snorkeling opportunity is the nighttime manta ray snorkeling. This does get a little bit chilly and does exercise your shoulders a fair amount. Basically, they put floats in the water at night that have special lights on them. These lights attract the sea plankton, which then attracts the manta rays who eat the sea plankton. They put bars around the floats for you to hang on to while you're floating in the water yourself with your arms stretched out above your head, and you watch the manta rays swim right beside you. It is actually a great experience. As far as beaches go, there are plenty of small beaches to stop and enjoy on the west side in Kailua Kona, On the northwest side is Waikoloa Beach, which is fairly nice and fairly popular as well. On the south side is Honolulu Black Sand Beach. This beach is also known for the sea turtles that come up to warm up on the sand. We didn't see any turtles on the beach. We did see a couple of them swimming near the beach, however, but they did not come up on the beach while we were there. There is also apparently a green sand beach on the Big Island, but there's no public access road to it, and it is apparently a fairly strenuous 5.5 mile round trip hike to get to that beach. So needless to say, we didn't opt for that. Definitely not for the faint of heart when it comes to hiking. A couple of other coastline things to consider seeing. One is South Point. This is actually the southernmost point in the United States. It is lower than Florida. Apparently there's a jump off point somewhere here that you can say you jumped off the southernmost point of the US, but I wasn't sure where it was, and because there's a small cliff about 20 feet or so, I didn't want to jump off on the wrong place and either hurt myself or find that I didn't have a way to get back up. So, did not opt for that. Another place on the coastline that we found by accident actually while wandering around is Kualanui Point. Kualanui Point is an area where the ocean waves hit the rocks in such a way that they make quite a splash. You can walk right up to that area. It's pretty cool. We're really glad we found it. Definitely worth the walk to get there. Continuing on, there are a couple of waterfalls on the Big Island you can go see. The first is Rainbow Falls, which is in Hilo on the east coast. It is actually right in town. If you get to it on a sunny day in the morning, you can actually see rainbow, thus the name. Unfortunately, it was a bit cloudy when we went to see it, so we didn't see the rainbow. But it was interesting to learn some of the history and the mythology around that particular rainbow. The other waterfall is Akaka Falls, which falls somewhere around 430 feet, something like that. It's a bit of a hike to get there with some elevation, about 100 feet of elevation change. It is a very nice view, worth the hike to get there. Another quick stop on the northeast corner is the Waipio Valley Overlook. Unfortunately, visitors are no longer allowed to go down into the valley. All you can do is go to the overlook and take pictures. There are some placards there that talk about the history of the valley. It is a nice view, but it's just a real quick stop at this point. Okay, next is a big one, the Volcano National Park. We only took one day at the park. If you're going to do a lot of the hikes and really study the full park, you're going to want a couple of days there. There's a lot to see. I'm not going to go into all the details. There's a lava tube you can walk through. You can also hike down into one of the volcano craters and walk across the crater. It's about a mile hike across the crater. It's also 400 feet down to the crater and 400 feet back up the other side, with another mile or so walk back around the upper edge of the crater back to where you started. We did not take the time to do that hike, nor did we feel up to that level of exercise with the 400 feet of elevation change on that hike. Instead of buying one of the expensive tours through the Volcano National Park, we bought an audio guide for $16, which guides you through a lot of the areas of the park and gives history on different volcanoes, lava flows, etc. It can be a little bit challenging to follow. The guide uses your phone's GPS to track where you are in the park so that it knows what to talk about at what point. So if you go too fast or you skip some points, it can kind of confuse things a little bit, and sometimes the guide is able to catch up. We found that once it actually didn't, and we had to manually go find where we were with the guide and to continue on. So it worked fairly well. It was actually very interesting. The final stop on that tour is the Sea Arch down at the southern coast. It was nice to see this natural formation. It is expected to last for very much longer as it wears away from the ocean's waves. So the last tour I want to talk about on the Big Island is the Mauna Kea Summit Sunset and Stargazing Tour. I think this tour is probably my favorite thing for the entire vacation that we went on. On this tour, you take a four-wheel drive vehicle and you drive up all 14,000 feet to the summit of Mauna Kea with a couple of breaks on the way to help you adjust to the elevation. This does require four-wheel drive, and I highly recommend doing the package tour with a tour guide that can give you a lot of the information along the way, as opposed to getting your own four-wheel drive and doing it yourself. At the top of Mauna Kea are several large telescopes from various different countries, organizations, whatever, for studying the stars from that height. You then stay up there, watch the sunset, which is very beautiful. You're well above the clouds, and it also gets very cold, so they provide winter parkas, snowsuit pants, gloves to help keep you warm. On the way back down, you stop at one of the stops that you stopped on the way up and pull out some small telescopes, do some stargazing, watch the stars come out. There's no light pollution from any towns nearby. The only light pollution is from the moon, which for us was a bit challenging because of our timing of vacation. The moon was at 70% when we went on this tour, so it definitely hid quite a few of the stars. It was the earliest point that we could go, but if you can time your vacation, if you're going to do this, then try to time your Mauna Kea summit package around new moon. That would be absolutely phenomenal. It is a fairly expensive tour, around $275 or $300. It is by far the most expensive tour that we did, but it is definitely worth it. One thing to be aware of on the Big Island, and that is to make sure you plan enough time on your trips for driving. From Kailua Kona, where we were staying, it takes an hour and a half to get to the Volcano National Park. It takes an hour and a half to go across the island to Hilo. It takes an hour to get to Honolulu Black Sand Beach. It takes a long time to get anywhere. We probably drove anywhere from 2 to 4 hours every day. So plan on plenty of time in the car. Moving on to Oahu. Oahu is a very different feel than the Big Island. The atmosphere on the Big Island tends to be very chill, relaxed. Most people are driving the speed limit, maybe a couple miles over, maybe a couple miles under, but not really that often do you see anybody driving much over the speed limit. People are generally very friendly. Oahu is much busier. Of course, you have Honolulu, which has absolutely ridiculous amounts of traffic, definitely a big city environment. There's police sirens going on, you hear people honking, all that kind of thing. And it's not just Honolulu that's busy. There are certain main attractions in Oahu that tend to get very crowded as well. Waikiki Beach, of course, the Pearl Harbor Museum and USS Arizona Memorial, the Polynesian Culture Center. We're going to talk about all of these. Hanauma Bay gets very, very crowded. Even though the tours in Oahu were really enjoyable and were worth it, it wasn't quite as enjoyable because of the crowds and the hassle of trying to get out of Honolulu to get to these locations. To give an example of the amount of population and crowds in Honolulu, we stopped at the Walmart in Honolulu when we were going to our condo to pick up some groceries for the week. They also have a Sam's Club in the same location. They have a massive 3-story building to house this, with an entire big, huge parking garage, 3-story parking garage to go with it. So the first story is all parking garage. Second story is half Walmart, half parking garage. Third story, half Sam's Club, half parking garage. We went on a Saturday afternoon and the entire parking garage was quite full. It's absolutely crazy. Once you get out of the city of Honolulu, Oahu is a little bit more like the Big Island when it comes to driving. People are more relaxed, a little more friendly for the most part, a little more chill. Hawaii is much greener than the Big Island, more lush. Most of the attractions in Oahu, however, are all on the south side, in the Honolulu area, or on the North Shore. There isn't a whole lot in between there, and it's about an hour's drive to go between the south side and the North Shore, so make sure you plan for that as well. We started off our time in Oahu on Sunday morning going to church on the beach, on Waikiki Beach. That was interesting. Everybody was certainly welcome. We enjoyed the music. It was a nice atmosphere. We then went to Pearl Harbor. The memorial and museum is a very somber experience as you think about all the lives lost in just a couple hours on that day. We were there for a couple hours ourselves. You can easily stay for an entire day if you go through all of the different stops, read all the different placards that they have, go through all the different places that they have there. We just stayed for a couple hours and took a quick look through everything and then went to the USS Arizona Memorial and back. Let's talk about snorkeling in Oahu. The most popular snorkeling spot is Hanauma Bay Beach, which we did not go to. Hanauma Bay Beach gets very crowded. It costs $25 a person for non-Hawaii residents, plus $3 for parking. They only allow a certain number of people on the beach each day. You have to get a ticket in advance to reserve your spot on the beach, and they sell out incredibly quickly. The online ticketing portal opens at 7 and they're usually sold out by 7:05 or 7:10. You can also do a walk-in approach. You then have to be at the beach somewhere around 6:30 or so to get in line to see if you can get a walk-in ticket. So we opted not to go for that. The only real difference from the pictures I saw as far as snorkeling between Hanauma Bay and Kealakekua Bay is that Hanauma Bay has sea turtles. So since we did want to see sea turtles, we chose instead to go to Turtle Canyon, which is a little bit offshore. You have to do a boat ride tour for that, but it was a little more enjoyable. Still fairly crowded, but not quite as bad as trying to deal with the stress of trying to get into Hanauma Bay Beach. There are actually other beaches available on the North Shore that are known for having turtles that you can go snorkeling on your own, and they're actually free, so maybe that's a better option to go instead of Turtle Canyon. Another huge attraction in Oahu is Kualoa Ranch. Kualoa Ranch is a 4,000-acre privately owned ranch on the east side of Oahu. They grow lots of different fruits and vegetables. They have fish ponds. There have been multiple movies that have been filmed partially in Kualoa Ranch. One of the King Kong movies, Jurassic movies, a portion of the Jumanji movies. They have horseback riding, jungle tour, movie set tour, agricultural tour, a bus tour, electric bike tour, a UTV tour, all kinds of stuff you can do. We opted for the jungle tour. It was a lot of fun, very educational and rather bumpy. I highly recommend doing one of their tours depending on which style and what your preferences are for a ride. And of course, you can't go to Oahu without visiting the Polynesian Cultural Center. This is an incredible exhibit that showcases the culture of 6 Polynesian islands: Hawaii, Fiji, New Zealand, Tahiti, Samoa, and Tonga. They have many hands-on activities: fishing, basket weaving, cooking, learning about some of the weapons and how to use them, hula lessons, all kinds of stuff, as well as demonstrations in music, dance, and food. We were originally going to just do a luau and not do the PCC, but changed our minds and did the PCC and not the luau. And we're actually glad we did. There's so much to see and experience here. Yes, the Polynesian Culture Center does support the Mormon Brigham Young University, whose theology we don't agree with, but the performances, shows were very good. At the end of the day is a theatrical performance that ends with fire knife performances that really are amazing, so it definitely is worth spending at least a day there. When you buy the tickets, they give you the option for 3 more days if there's more you want to see at no extra charge, so you can do multiple days there for the price of one. Let's talk about some things to see in downtown Honolulu. One of the most famous is the King Kamehameha statue. This is across the street from the Iolani Palace and actually sits in front of a building called Ali Iolani, which is currently the state Supreme Court for Hawaii. You can actually go inside, check it out. There's a lot of interesting exhibits there about the history of government in Oahu. Speaking of which, there have been a lot of movies and TV shows that have been filmed in various locations in Hawaii. Since we like to watch movies, we went on a movie set tour of the island on our own. We started at the Aloha Tower in Honolulu, which unfortunately is closed. Apparently this was part of the set of maybe the original King Kong movie, I'm not sure, but that's what they say. Next we went to the King Kamehameha statue and Ali Iolani building, like I said. If you've watched the reboot of Hawaii Five-0 from a few years ago, which ran for I think 10 seasons, they have several scenes from this section of Honolulu. After that we went on a beach run for movie sets. We stopped at Turtle Bay Resort and Turtle Bay Beach. There's been movies filmed there that we haven't even seen. We also stopped at Kahuku Beach, which has no public roads to the beach. You actually have to walk across a golf course to go to the beach, which we decided to do because, you know, it's us. One of the articles I read said that a portion of one of the Hunger Games movies was filmed there. I didn't recognize it, so I'm not sure that was accurate, but it's a nice beach, no crowds because you have to walk across a golf course to get to it. So hey, if you're looking for a quiet beach, check it out. Next up is the biggest one in our movie run, and that is Kawela Bay. We walked down to Kawela Bay Beach and recognized it immediately as the beach from Hunger Games Catching Fire with the clock-shaped game arena. Just a couple minutes walk from Kualoa Beach is a very famous banyan tree that was used in Hunger Games: Catching Fire, Lost, and I believe Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides as well, with the mermaid in the pools scene. Next up is Mokulea Beach, which is the beach used for the airplane crash for the Lost TV show. The last stop on our beach run for movie sets was Halona Cove. Halona Cove has a blowhole that people like to come and see, but for us the attraction was the little beach that was used to film the scenes in Whitecap Bay from Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. The last tourist stop I want to mention is Tantalus Lookout. This is a fairly popular lookout point that overlooks Honolulu with clear views of Diamond Head as well. I actually took a motorbike ride one morning while we were there. I went to the lookout on my own. I have a separate video talking all about that experience. You can find that here. So that's everything we did basically. Now let's talk about some of the things that are recommended that we actually didn't do and why we didn't do them. Mostly everything that we didn't do was all hike related, and we felt it was just not a level of exercise we felt like getting into. Of course, there's the crater hike that I mentioned on the Big Island. That's a 2 or 3 mile hike with 400 feet of elevation change. On Oahu, you have Diamond Head Crater, which is a 1.5 mile hike round trip with 560 feet of elevation change, and there are some steep points on the hike. One that is much more strenuous yet is Coco Head Crater. That has an elevation change of 1,200 feet and is much steeper. Apparently these all offer phenomenal views of the area, and so for those who are really into hiking, those are definitely worth it. They're just not for us. The one waterfall that is most popular in Oahu is Manoa Falls. This one is another 1.5 or so mile hike. It has about 600 feet of elevation change. You've got the potential for muddy paths, mosquitoes, possibly rain because of its location and getting into the mountains. And then there's a 150-foot waterfall at the end of your hike. Because we don't have good hiking boots, we just had our sneakers. Because we didn't have light ponchos for rain, just some of those different logistics. And because of the 600 feet elevation change, we opted to just be content with Akaka Falls on the Big Island for our waterfall viewing. There are plenty of water activities that we didn't do, of course, surfing, parasailing, scuba diving. For that matter, we didn't even go swimming in the ocean outside of the snorkeling tours that we did. We're not the kind of people who like to just sit on the beach or go swim in the ocean just for fun. That's just not us. The last item on our list to talk about is food. Let's talk local foods that are recommended for visitors to try. We're going to start with poke, which is raw fish mixed with a sauce of your choosing. I tried a small amount of ahi poke. I'm not sure what the sauce was. I think it was a spicy sauce, something like that. The fish itself was kind of bland and mushy. The sauce was the only thing that was really good about it, not something I would buy again. Next up is musubi. This is a little cake of rice with a piece of fried spam on top and then wrapped in a seaweed wrap. Some of them have a fried egg on top of the spam as well, and then wrapped in the seaweed wrap. It was actually quite good. I enjoyed it very much. I had a couple of those throughout the trip. You can actually stop in at some of the grocery stores that have a little bakery, little deli section. Often will sell little musubi packets that you can buy. It is fairly salty though. Next up is Loco Moco. This is rice topped with meat, topped with gravy, and topped with eggs to your liking. It could be fried, over easy, scrambled, whatever. The Loco Moco I tried had Kahlua pork in it. Kahlua pork is another thing that they say you need to try when you're in Hawaii as far as the way they cook the pork. So I had 2 birds knocked off with 1 stone there. I enjoyed the Loco Moco very much as well. Another food that I've tried just a very small amount of is poi. Poi is made from taro, which is a root vegetable, I think similar to like potato or sweet potato. Poi is made from mashing up cooked taro into a paste and then adding water until you get like a pudding consistency. It ranges from sweet to sour depending on how fresh the taro is. In other words, the more fermented the taro, the more sour the poi gets. I tried a very small amount, maybe half a teaspoon, at the Polynesian Culture Center in one of the food demonstrations. It tasted really fairly bland, nothing special. It's interesting though, we've seen taro flavored ice cream here in the States. In our area, some of the specialty ice cream shops have had taro flavored ice cream. Taro is actually supposed to be very good for you, very healthy. If you're in Oahu and are looking for a more authentic restaurant, one place we did stop in Honolulu, we found this little restaurant while we were bumming around called Max and Lucy's. It's this dinky little place, only has like 4 or 5 tables you can sit at. We saw some locals eating there, so it does seem like it's more of a local restaurant. It was quite good. They had several options to pick from. Nothing spectacular, but definitely had more of a local feel to it and wasn't crazy, outrageously priced. We were able to get our 2 meals for around 25 bucks. Most restaurants in the area are $25 a meal at least. So that's enough of the main courses. Let's talk dessert. 2 main desserts to look at in Hawaii. The first, of course, is shaved ice. We did have shaved ice on the Big Island. I'm not quite sure what the big deal is with shaved ice. It's basically glorified snow cones. Take some really finely crushed ice and pour sugary flavored juice over it. Shaved ice. But anyway, we're supposed to try it, so we did. What we really gravitated towards was malasadas. Malasadas are fried donuts. They're typically coated with either plain sugar, cinnamon sugar, or powdered sugar. You can also get them made with different types of dough. There can be taro flavored dough or something else. You can get them with a filling, like a cream filling, or guava filling, mango filling, apple filling, passion fruit, coconut. They're best had when they're cooked fresh for you, nice and warm. So where do you find them? On the Big Island, there's a bake shop called Kualanui Bake Shop, which is of course very close to the Polynesian Black Sand Beach. It has malasadas. They have main dishes you can buy there. They have Hawaiian sweet bread, which somebody told us we needed to get, which is basically kind of a light fluffy bread with a little extra sugar in it. To me, it felt something like halfway between bread and angel food cake. Kualanui Bake Shop mass bakes all of their malasadas in the morning, so they're not warm and fresh when you get them unless you get there first thing in the morning, and even then they really aren't that fresh. They're on the southeast side of the island. On the northwest side of the island, across the island, is Manuela's Malasadas food truck, which, at least when we were there, is very close to the road that goes over to Waikoloa Beach, maybe about half a mile or a quarter mile away. Baked fresh for you, absolutely phenomenal. In Oahu, the famous place to get your malasadas is Leonard's. They also make them fresh for you. Good luck finding a parking spot. Make sure you have the time to stand in line for a bit because that place is incredibly popular. All right, folks, so that about does it. Those were all the things we did, the foods we ate, places we recommend, things we didn't do that are recommended, why we didn't do them. Mahalo for watching this video. See you on the next one.